Joining us now is retired Army Lieutenant General R McMaster, who served as the former president's national security advisor from 2017 through 2018. His new book on his time in the White House is At War with Ourselves, My Tour of Duty in the Trump White House. General McMaster, thanks for being with us. I'm in the midst of the book, and I'm really enjoying it. You write, he says you got to fire everybody who touched this policy. As you write in the book, he touched this policy. He had a lot of hands on it. You write in the book, Trump established the first sound, long-term, low-cost strategy for Afghanistan and South Asia, but then abandoned that strategy and replicated the Obama policy of negotiating a withdrawal timeline with a terrorist organization, setting the stage for the Biden administration's humiliating retreat from Kabul in August 2021. You were out of the White House at the time that this was done. You write that you, quote, watched with incredulity and revulsion as he directed an envoy to negotiate withdrawal with the Taliban. You would not have advised him to do that.
Absolutely. And I advised him to do quite the opposite of that in the run-up to what was his decision in August of 2017. And I tell that story in detail in the book about how really Trump made a tough decision and made, I think, what was the best available decision, and put into place in 2017 the first sustainable, reasoned approach to Afghanistan. The war, by that point, had not been a 16-year war. It had been a one-year war, fought 16 times over. But, you know, Anderson, he couldn't stick with the decision. He didn't stick with the decision. And I think people were in his ear and manipulated him into, with these mantras of, end the endless wars and Afghanistan's a graveyard of empires and so forth. And
so when he is critical of, the Biden administration's withdrawal, which, I guess the Biden administration could have not gone along with the deal that was made. Biden did push back Trump had set a guaranteed withdrawal date May 1st. Biden pushed it back to August. Trump had cut troop levels down drastically, even though the Taliban was still attacking. The Taliban had allowed terrorist organizations, again, to have a home in their government, in their country. But Trump had his hand on, does Trump bear part of the responsibility for what happened?
Oh, yes. So the whole premise of talking to the Taliban before you leave Afghanistan, why the heck were we even doing that?
He was going to invite them to Camp David.
Right. Even the Obama administration, when they made the mistake of pulling all of our troops out of Iraq in 2010, which really set conditions for the rise of ISIS and so forth by 2014, the Obama administration didn't negotiate with al-Qaeda in Iraq on the way out. And so if we were going to leave, why not just leave? What happened in these series of negotiations and concessions to the Taliban is we kind of threw the Afghans under the bus on the way out.
And they cut the Afghan government out of those negotiations, right?
Absolutely. So that was mistake one. Then forced them to release 5,000 of some of the most heinous people on earth, and then began
the Trump
to
administration
withdraw.
Forced the Afghan government to release 5,000 Taliban.
Correct. And then also stopped the active targeting of the Taliban, which President Trump, again to his credit in 2017, had restored because he was convinced, how the heck does this make any sense? To give your enemy a timeline for your withdrawal and then say, now I'm going to negotiate a favorable settlement?
So it raises the question about the atmosphere within the White House, which you write a lot about. The portrait you paint of dysfunction in the White House from a sort of management perspective is pretty alarming. You say Trump pitted people against each other instead of building collaborative teams. You say it was an administration at war with itself. Do you have any reason to believe that if there's another Trump administration, that it would be any different? Because doesn't that tone get set by the commander-in-chief?
Well, as a historian, too, Anderson, I realized that was not unprecedented, right? So one of the things that gave me solace as I was in that position was that thinking about the first Reagan administration, how tumultuous that was. And so I knew that this was really nothing new. It happens in all administrations. But in the Trump administration, I think everything was magnified.